Millions of people feel like they know Audrey Hepburn through Breakfast at Tiffany's, Roman Holiday, and of course, her humanitarian work with UNICEF. But my guest today knew the woman who made breakfast, tucked him into bed, and wasn't performing for the camera. Welcome to Plot Twist Radio, the show where creativity, storytelling, and the unpredictable path of the creative life all collide. I'm your host, Erin Egnatz. Hi, Sean. Welcome to Plot Twist Radio.
Thank you, Erin. Lovely to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Before we dive into your mother and the memoir, I'd love for listeners to get to know you a little. You've spent time in film production, directing, writing, and preserving your mother's legacy. But you've also built a life that's uniquely your own. Can you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
I was fortunate enough to grow up in multi-cultures and in a very inclusive home. I'd like to add to that ideology-free, which is one of the great gifts that our mother gave us. And because of the many languages, obviously, when I started working in the entertainment industry very early on in 1978, when I was just 18, I got a chance to participate in productions a bit everywhere. And I did that for 15 years. And then once she got ill and ultimately passed away very soon thereafter, I decided, sort of catching the baton in the air, that maybe waiting to make some bad action film was not the calling of my life, and that I should continue this extremely worthy effort, cause, call it what you may, of her being one of the first really public ambassadors for the well-being of children all over the world for UNICEF. And so I sort of put my filmmaking dreams on the side, and they sort of became a hobby at that point. And I decided to care for her legacy, to continue the work with much smaller footsteps than hers, to continue what she had started. And that's basically what I've been doing for the past 33 years. I have made some projects and some things that I'm relatively proud of in the filmed entertainment arena, but it hasn't been my bread and butter. The basic my mandate has been to protect her image so that other people don't sort of ruin it. Although I think at this point it would be very difficult. Her roots have grown deep into our culture and our society, and to also sort of limitedly do some licensing with her name, image, and likeness, I guess, to buy a new pair of sneakers here and there. That's basically, in a nutshell, that's a Reader's Digest version of, I turned 66 2 days ago, so there you have it.
Oh, well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
So, as you said, you've worked at preserving her legacy, which is incredible, and you've done an excellent job. There has to be a balance between preserving her legacy and simply living your own life. Has finding that balance changed over the years, or has it just been the same throughout?
Well, I guess it's very similar to the question of what it's like to be the son of a major star and a legend and all of that. And I love that question because the answer I love even better, which is I have no idea. She was a normal mom. She gave up, as we all know already, her career at the top of her game to really be a full-time mother. She said, I wanted to be a mom, and so I'm not going to try and spin too many plates, as in that very adorable show in the circus. Yeah, so I guess I had to learn to separate. I lost my mother on January 20th, 1993 at 8 p.m., and we had a fantastic connection beyond, I guess, the parental one, a wonderful friendship, let's call it that, which is not a given, as I'm sure you've learned. You're much younger than I, but by now you've either experienced it yourself or heard it through friends that, parents are not always what we would hope them to be. And for the parents, we're not everything that they've hoped. And it's not a natural thing. Sometimes people who are not, genetically related to us, we have the kinds of relationship that we would hope to have with a parent, as a sort of a replacement, a placeholder. So yes, I mean, we had this wonderful friendship. So when and I took great care of her when she was not well. And so I made peace with that. And so what's left really is awake. It's that kind of wonderful, quiet, sunny room, on a Sunday afternoon with this still and there's a wonderful legacy that she left, the sort of tripod I always describe, which is, of course, the actress, the more than the actress, because she didn't take herself that seriously, maybe the movie star, people have criticized her acting in the past, and she'd be the first one to agree. The movie star, the icon of style. She created this less is more look that seems to have survived the test of times and the decades, and ultimately, this last or second and most important career, she used to call it, the one of a humanitarian ambassador. And so I think that sort of three-parted, if you may, gives it great stability. And so, I thank you for the compliment you just paid me. I wish I could sit here and tell you that I had something to do with it, to preserving it. A bit like the Hippocratic Oath, this is first do no harm. I tried to do that. And I think at that, maybe we've succeeded. But she really has been naturally carried into the future, a bit like the Pied Piper, for the generations that she so fervently tried to protect. Tweens and teens, and then she replaced sort of James Dean. I don't like to say that because nothing can replace James Dean, but she sort of replaced him on the closet door of the tweens and teens, and they became young adults, and now they've passed it on to the next generation. And there's nothing you can do. There's no clever marketing or social media campaign that you can structure to achieve that. It either happens or it doesn't, and it has, and it's very sweet because, as I always like to describe it, they have this lovely kaleidoscopical view of who she was. Some know the lady with the glasses and the trench coat, and they've seen a bit of Breakfast at Tiffany. Another one knows she went to Africa. The third one knows she carried messages for the resistance during World War II, and that their parents loved the movies, and all together they may have a sense, which really brings us to why this book now. I had written Elegant Spirit, 25 years ago, which was more sort of like a spiritual biography. At the time of her passing, I had written a short 30-page letter to my children, who one day would grow up and ask the fatidic question of what was she really like. And that you're there when somebody dies well, as our family doctor used to say. That means they lived well, and I wanted to tell that little piece of but there had never been sort of a real biography, and she's becoming such a legend that I sort of, like that balloon that escapes at the birthday party, I wanted to sort of grab it and bring her down to earth and say, yes, she is kind of becoming a legend, but she was a real person. She had real issues. She had to deal with pains and sorrows, and like we all have. And that's really why this book now, before I'm too old and I'm done, so.
Yes, absolutely. And you said that, she was a stylized icon that lasted throughout the decades. I have to tell you, when I got married in 2009, I was like, I want to look like Audrey Hepburn. That's what I told the stylist. I want to look like her. I loved her style, but you're right. Her humanitarian stuff was incredible. And it's something that we should all know about. And I'm so happy that you carried that on.
Let me jump in here and say, you don't have to look like Audrey Hepburn to be, in that vein and that style, because really all you have to do is sort of have the courage, to sort of boil it down to the essentials. I always marvel, and I used to more so in the past because I don't really watch it anymore. When I watch the Academy Awards, these beautiful girls decide to do a new hairdo the night where 1.5 billion people are going to be seeing them, possibly give an acceptance speech. And why would you want to test your ability to resemble a poodle on a one night? I mean, why not just have a simple, sheet dress, your hair pulled back, lovely, sober. A lot of them do it, but some of them don't know that yet and are learning it the hard way.
Yes, yes. And they do test out some interesting looks for sure.
They sure do.
Yeah. So, getting into the memoir itself, What did an ordinary day look like with your mother when the cameras weren't around?
She was a normal mom. She'd got up with her hair flat on her. And I'm telling you, the years when we were together in Rome, because after, when I turned 18, I left and I went to work and then I moved to America. And so we saw each other on holidays. But those teen years, she'd get up with her hair flat on her head, help me to make me breakfast and maybe go through the homework we had repeated, or rehearsed the night before. And then after, the Italian system, you have 5 classes and then 1 o'clock you go home and have lunch. And then sometimes you go back for sports and things or whatever. So she'd come and get me at school. And of course, they were paparazzi. And of course, that was part of the discovery curve of realizing that this lovely mom wasn't just a mom like every other one, that somehow they were interested in her. And I'm going to date myself. You have to accept the fact that when I was a kid, there were TV channels, both of them in black and white, not in America. I'd go for summers in America and there were 13 channels and I'd, change them and watch all the TV guide, fantastic, with highlights and watch all the old movies. But in Europe, it was still that way. And so, and then I didn't grow up in Hollywood, not the place nor the state of mind. And so we didn't have screening rooms. Nobody sat me down and said, this is my career, and nothing ever like that. So with time, people would call me and they'd say, there looks your mother in a young version in a black and white movie. And with time in the summers, in those days, actors didn't get the DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever because they didn't exist. So they got a 16 millimeter print of their film, and she had them all beautifully stacked in the attic in this beautiful closet system she had built in the attic. And so with time, they found an old Bell and Howell projector, and I started watching her films, and splicing them back when the film broke, and it sort of started to touch, celluloid and develop, a real hands-on sort of love for the magic of sitting in a dark place and watching, with other people something, and I think we're losing that a bit today with the streamers, but hopefully I have a plan to bring it back, but it's too early to say something. But I have a lovely project, which it will be a wink at old cinema.
I love that. I love that. There's nothing like old cinema, to be honest.
Well, because the scripts were wonderful. People wrote in those days, and today we're even considering now having AI write the scripts. AI is wonderful for research and it's going to accelerate science in an extraordinary way. But when it comes to art, it sort of has this Teflon on the screen, and it just doesn't stick. And I've listened to the music and I've seen the photographs and these beautiful composition of the Taj Mahal with trees growing out of its ears. It doesn't stick. It's never going. And so people are terrified. Oh my God, it's going to replace us all. It's never going to replace anything. People are, kids, first of all, are buying LPs and taking pictures with old Nikons, and people are going to concerts more. I mean, in the olden days, you made a concert to promote your latest record as in LP. Today, of course, that's flopped around. You use your record to promote your concert. Just look at the success of some of these artists, and what I think the wonderful girl broke the record for $1 billion concert tour. Help me out. What's her name?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was incredible. I know my daughter wanted to go to that, but there was no way to get those tickets.
Well, it's more than a concert. I mean, we used to, have 22 tractor trailers to move the Stones around. I was on tour with them for a while, back in the 80s. But today it's almost like Cirque du Soleil. I mean, it's taken on a whole, very poetic and beautiful, and it opens up and, it creates a real experience, so. But so I think that we all realize that the connection, all art really is a way to connect with people. And I think she had a gift, and people felt at an instinctive level that she was true. And the people say, what was she really like? I said, look at the movies. That's the person. You're not getting, she's not an actor's studio. It was before the actor's studio, before, you have to become this character and transform yourself, as De Niro so brilliantly did in so many of his films, including Raging Bull. But she did it instinctively by researching and so she she brought each character into Audrey Hepburn, but it's Audrey Hepburn. It's Audrey Hepburn in many facets. And we all are, wonderfully rich personas, with so many facets, like a beautiful diamond.
I like that. So, as far as the memoir goes, what was it like revisiting all this as you were writing it?
Well, it's not. I wish I could say to you that it was a life changing, but it's not, because for the past 33 years, because of efforts in not only cultivating her IP and her legacy, but also continuing her charitable efforts or humanitarian efforts, we've created many things, books, exhibitions with film clips and photographs. So I'm sort of curating all of that on a daily basis. And so she's there. And if I'm in an editing room, I can hear her voice. And if I'm opening the next chapter of the Intimate Audrey exhibition, because there's also an exhibition in China right now by the same title, I can hear her voice, her singing over and over again until you want to shoot yourself. But yes, I mean, she's there. She's there. She's there in my heart, but she's also there in actual fact, because what she left is a living sort of, the testament of through all of her films and her work and her speeches and all the materials of what she felt about, her work for children and what she didn't believe in guilt and collective guilt, but she did believe in collective responsibility. And I have to tell you, it's been a hard couple of years, because it feels like everything that we've built, and we always knew that humanitarian work, charitable, was a sort of a stepping stone towards making the developing societies independent, it feels like all of this has been undone in a terrible way, and it's tragic, and it feels like I've sort of wasted the past 32 years. We've probably done a little bit in trying to make some lives better and whatever, but what I see, I'm going to leave it at this. I don't need to make drawings, that put them in front of you here. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't mean to politicize this interview in any way.
No, but you bring up a really good point, and it is true. It's something that we're all, it's in our face, and it's our responsibility to come together and stop this. And it is. I'm like you. I'm very disheartened. I'm hoping that we can push through it and get back to and move forward.
I don't know how, you're in a relationship and the person there's infidelity, which I talk about in the book. And here there's been infidelity between America and the rest of the world. And I'm not so sure how we can mend that. And how we say, no, 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 baby, please, please. The next morning, remember that film, Heart Like a Wheel? No, no, baby, please, please. I didn't mean it. I didn't want to hit you. I was drinking. How many times can you do that until the other person says, these are just empty words, and because it's not the leader, the marionette, that is going to get replaced sooner or later, but it's the society that enabled this atrocity to take place in so many different ways that is responsible. And that it's not going to change. So, the America I love, that I grew up in, with, the doors left open and the keys in the car and the wonderful soda fountains. And I lived part of that, I'm not sure how we recreate that ever. And that spirit, that innocence, that it really was a socialized country, because the little white picket fence was not for the billionaires. It was for the working mom and dad, and for kids to play ball. And that's, it was built for the middle class, and that's gone.
It is.
Apart from the international nightmare and all of that, and what we're doing, what we have done, and then we're now doing without even worrying about covering it up. So
That is.
I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm going off track here, but when you've spent this long and you've seen what I've seen, and some things that I will never forget in all these years doing humanitarian work and going to conferences on C-sex, commercial sexual exploitation of children and things, when I see what we are capable of in the utter darkness, and also when I see what some of us are capable to bring light into all of this, I just can't help myself than to sort of, diverge a little bit.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think a lot of us have gotten so complacent that we don't realize it. And now that it's all in our face, we're all kind of like, my gosh, how did we let it get like this?
Yeah.
I know my husband and I talk about it all the time. We up until a couple years ago, I don't even think I realized it. I don't know if I was just living with my head in the clouds or what, but yes,
Where are you based?
right outside of Chicago. So,
Oh, beautiful.
yeah, it's a wonderful place, but I would like it to get back to that middle class world that America was pretty much made for. I would like for us to.
The cost of living is, I mean, I have my webmaster is in the US, and
Uh-huh.
I see what people live on here in Italy, because they have the schooling system is included and the healthcare and all of that. But I mean, 10 grand a month doesn't cut it anymore. That's insane.
Yes.
People in Italy, just to give you some perspective, families, a 2,000 euro salary costs the employer about $4,000, 4,000 euros, which is about 5 grand. But people live on that with mom and dad and a couple kids, and they go to school and they have Sunday lunch outside with their families. And, there's a lot of help that the family fabric hasn't been sort of undone by the need to comply to the corporate request as we have done in America, where you have to constantly move and go where the wind takes you. And so, people pass on homes and things and they help each other and all that. But still, the quality of life for, much less is extraordinary, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm realizing that now, and it
Mhm.
makes me sad. It makes me sad. I just started learning Italian. I have a Italian tutor, and he tells me about his restaurant and how he likes to go surfing. I was like, I want to do all that stuff, but I have to work. It's not fair.
Of
No.
course.
But so where can the audience find the memoir, and find out more information about your amazing mother?
Well, the memoir is available. I believe it's even available on Amazon and in bookstores. It's still a hardcover. Pretty soon it'll be a soft cover, which price will come down a little bit, but it's not that expensive. And I think if you've read that, I mean, she's all over, the media and YouTube and TikTok and whatever. So, but at least here you get a glimpse into what she really was like. And so it becomes kind of like a lens through which to see all the other stuff that's readily available on so I don't want to add much because I don't want to ruin the book. The one thing that I'm very proud of is coming up with this silly idea of making each chapter start like a film script, because of course that was her world, and it sort of propels you into the moment, and that you're actually hearing people talking. We are a video society today, and so it sort of speaks to that side of the brain, which is inclined to it. It sort of helps. It's a bridge to help bring you from a world of video to, a world of, to a more literary, experience. And I think people seem to be liking it a lot. I'm sure other people have done it before. I just came up with it on my own. And Wendy immediately took to it. And Wendy Holden is a wonderful collaborator and co-writer. And immediately I wanted a person there to be sort of like a liver, a filter. I'm not objective anymore. I can't be after, 60 years since I was a little boy to, being exposed to her. So I don't know what's interesting and what isn't. I'd probably throw out the whole thing, including, the baby with the bathwater. And she had been a war correspondent before she became a biographer. And that to me was sort of hit the spot instantly, because my mother's life starts with World War II. It ends with her work for UNICEF, which, as we all know too well, the greatest tragedies around the world are not tsunamis and earthquakes. They're man-made. It's man upon man, and that means war and some sort of conflict. And so I needed someone who was sort of tuned to that. And, I didn't have to sort of explain it. And of course, I wouldn't do a great job explaining it because it's learned secondhand experience. In my case, I didn't go to the military, and I've been to places where there's a lot of poverty and a lot of difficulty, but I've not been to war zones. I had small children for many years, and I can risk my life up to a point, so.
Absolutely. So I will leave you with one last question. Millions of people have loved Audrey Hepburn, but you were lucky enough to simply call her mom. When you hear that name, Audrey Hepburn, what's the first memory that comes to mind for you?
It's difficult to encapsulate it. It's the person. It's the sweetness and the strength together. You know, the hug that we gave each other the day I left home to go to work, and I went to work on this film in Korea for a year, big war film, and turned around and saw her shedding a tear as I, walked through security and all of that. And it's the times we sat, the alternative title to the book was Smiling in the Dark. I don't know if you've read it yet. That there was, yeah, so there's a wonderful experience when they were doing these little ballet shows during the war to raise funds for the resistance. Of course, they couldn't clap their hands because it would have made noise and attracted the attention. So everybody just smiled in the dark, and that became a thing. And then, I bring that back at the end, when she says, don't forget to smile in the dark. And so um, that was really, when she'd invite me for a sleepover and we'd chat with the lights off and sort of two souls suspended and talking about the good and the bad and how to make it all sort of work, in our lives. And so those are the things that you remember. I mean, kids always say, yeah, I more readily remember and smile at the camping with the tent that collapsed and we all got wet and then the fire and and not the Four Seasons, at the Molokai, in Hawaii or whatever. It's the real things. And we had a lot of that. We had a lot of that because that's the way she was. And I think it's a huge gift to grow up while being, rooted an extraordinary entertainment industry, but to have a normal childhood. I see a lot of other kids that are having difficult time because they don't know what to do with all this, and it's not normal. I was watching a few days ago someone on it doing an interview and saying that I know it, Mick Jagger, and they asked him, is it normal? I mean, do you ever get used to it? He says no, and especially when you're young, it's difficult to cope with fame, and with time, then you sort of learn to, but it sort of twists you. And I'm lucky I didn't get twisted, at least until a bit later on. Um, so those are the things I remember.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Same here. What a joy to be able. Thank you for helping us to continue to tell her story. She was a lovely person and a good example, and someone that we can feel safe to look up to. Mm. And she still has a wonderful effect on this society of ours because she feels like something secure and real and genuine. Maybe that's the best word.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.